it's really good to just communicate with your partner, like, hey, does that feel good? Or, do you want to do a different angle this way? Like, let's try different angles in doggy, because that will help you hit the G-spot in a certain way versus just keep ramming into her cervix. Welcome to What I Love About Sex, where some incredible guests and I, Steph Kanowski, will be bringing you the tools for improving your sex life with topics such as sex issues with your partner, sexual self-confidence, premature ejaculation, sexual shame, masturbation, sharing your fetishes, orgasmic pleasure, and more. Sex is still so taboo, and I personally believe that by improving our understanding and communication skills around sex, we can enhance our own self-pleasure as well as deepening our long-term romantic relationships. So listen in, try to stay open-minded, and let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode on the What I Love About Sex podcast. So this episode is about pounding her hard and deep from behind. This is a guy's go-to position, right? Most guys love doggy because they can get really deep, but too many women don't speak up about the pain that comes along with guys going too deep. If you're not hitting the top of her inner wall, then you're most likely going straight to her cervix. So when it hits the cervix, it is really painful. And women will moan and make noises. Maybe you think that they're really into it, but they're actually not. It's more like an exaggerated, moan or yell that just comes with the pain of hitting the cervix. You hitting her cervix. And I find this really interesting that most women don't say anything. I, for one, would never say something because I felt like, oh, well, this should feel good. And I was kind of embarrassed to say that it didn't because I just assumed, hey, like, this is in porn all the time. Like, this should give me pleasure. Those women love it. And it's really interesting to educate yourself on sex and orgasms and what's the common theme among men and women throughout study by study by study. And I'm reading this book right now called Sizzling Sex for Life. And I just want to read part of this paragraph. Meanwhile, during porn intercourse, the women thrash and moan, looking like they come. Actually, they don't. I've interviewed several women porn actors. None ever came on camera. Porn sex, largely fellatio and intercourse, didn't turn them on. But all were orgasmic at home with their partners, thanks to direct, gentle, extended clitoral caresses from vibrators, lovers' hands, and especially their tongues. So it just goes to show that, like, that rough sex you see in porn with a guy thrusting super hard and long and deep, right? Going so deep, and the woman super into it. Most women can't handle that. Most women do not orgasm from that either. So it's not to say you should never do it, but I'm telling you that as a woman who had a hard time speaking up about it, ask your partner, like, does that feel good for you when we do doggy? Like, does it actually feel good, or like, does it feel like it's going too deep and hitting your cervix? Because she'll know the difference between, hey, I really like when you go fast and deep at this angle, but then this other angle really hurts. Because that's usually how it pans out. If you're hitting the G spot, which is not that far into her vagina, but if you're like rubbing more along that G spot, that will feel a lot better for her versus you going straight to the cervix. That's just like it's like a sucker punch to the stomach. Like like that's what it feels like, just over and over, really fast and hard. It honestly like does bruise then too. And the next day, like, a woman will feel pain and feel like inner bruising. But it is up to the woman to communicate this, right? But I'm just telling you my perspective as a woman, and just feeling kind of embarrassed to say something and feel like I should feel pleasure from that, because in porn, everybody's receiving pleasure from that, and then guys are always talking about, oh, like, I want to fuck you hard and deep. And it's just like, all right, I feel like I should be turned on by that, right? But I was never turned on by that wording. And I know many women who aren't, due to most experiences not feeling good in that position. So it's really good to just communicate with your partner, like, hey, does that feel good? Or, do you want to do a different angle this way? Like, let's try different angles in doggy, because that will help you hit the G-spot in a certain way versus just keep ramming into her cervix. So, another important point, and I'll go back to those things, but another important point is to don't rush intercourse like they do in porn. It doesn't make sense. She is not ready. She's not prepped. And you can't put your dick into a dry hole. Like, if it is ever dry, if she is ever dry, do not try to put your dick in there, right? And don't just spit on it really fast. Like, you need to warm her up. Her body has to be prepped. It's like the vagina is not just a hole and then inside there's nothing. Like, there's all tissue. There's all like muscle tissue right in there that needs to be prepped and ready to go, so that when you are going in and out, there isn't, this pain or constricted feeling. And over time, if a woman feels pain, she'll eventually start, just subconsciously, her body will start clamping up. And this can turn into vaginismus, which is her vagina just clamping. And this affects like 10% of women, and it's the leading cause of women's sexual pain. So it causes like these muscle spasms out of fear of like something entering. So you don't want that to happen. And a lot of women do experience pain. Not a lot of women, I should say, but like there are a lot of different things that lead to women's sexual pain. So we want to avoid those at every cost, right? So that you guys feel good having sex and that she feels good having sex. Something you really should do is use lubricants. Because lubricants there's nothing wrong with using a lubricant, even if a woman's in her 20s. Like, it is totally normal to use lube and to use it thoroughly. And even if you guys are having a quickie, especially if you're having a quickie and you can't warm her up by going down on her and getting her to orgasm first so that she's all prepped and ready. So lube is a great thing. And even if she did orgasm and she's just having a sexual experience where she can't get that wet, which is still normal and very common, lube is a great substitute. So you really want to, and I'll leave a really great lube in the show notes. It's through this company, Woo More Play, and it's coconut based, so you can't use it with condoms, but you can use it during play. So I will link that in the show notes. Otherwise, use water-based lubes. But anyway, don't be afraid of lube is what I'm trying to say. Like, don't feel like it's this weird thing, or if you get her lube that you're trying to say something, like, just remind her, like, hey, I got a new lube. Like, I got this because I feel like, I want you to have the best experience. I want to make sure that I never tear you and that, like, you're always feeling ready to go, regardless of when we start having sex or how fast we go. So I just want to have it on hand for you to make sure that you're feeling good. And that's a great way to communicate that. You're not just saying like, oh, you probably need this. It's like, hey, I want you to feel good. I care about your pleasure. I care about not hurting you, is essentially what you're saying. And I think more women have to get comfortable, using lube and being okay with their partner using it on them. It's a great thing. Super helpful. Because you don't, like I said, you don't ever want to insert your dick into her if she is not completely wet. Like, she should be dripping to some extent, whether it's with lube, whether it's with her own cum. She should be completely prepped before you enter her, always. So, and when it comes to, let's get back to like the porn pounding and going really deep, a great way to know her depth is to go in doggy and go behind her and just ask her to reverse onto you. Because if you do that, she can do it a few times, and then you'll see like what she can take or what her limit is. And then you, knowing what her limit is, can maybe take over, go a little faster, but understand and respect her limit, right? So like I said, a lot of women won't say anything because they want to be sexy and they want to keep it hot. But at the same time, it's like, it really hurts them. Like, that's not fun. Like, she doesn't want to be bruised the next day. Then it takes so long to have sex again because like she's bruised inside. And it's just not fun. It's not a good feeling. And a lot of guys are like, oh yeah, she shouldn't be walking after if you fuck her right. No, she should be able to walk. Like, I mean, there's definitely times when you have like crazy hard sex and you're both into it, right? And also if you're into BDSM, that's another story. If it's consensual and it's consensual pain, that's a different story. But I'm talking about just being open and communicating with your partner to know what their limits are and know what they're looking for and what makes them feel good. And then to what extent does it not make them feel good? So just amping up the communication there and finding ways to understand her limits and follow through with them moving forward. So I think that's a really good thing to remember. And also, just when it comes to the pounding aspect, try to think of like when women, like when she's on top of you, how fast is she going? Some women are really super aggressive and go really hard when they're on top. Some women, probably most women, don't go that hard or aggressive, right? They kind of do like a little bop, a little up and down bop, or they go really slow and they prefer slow for the most part. So kind of see where she's at the majority of the time, what turns her on, what's the speed that really gets her feeling really good, and what's the speed that she orgasms from. Because if she's on top, you probably experience her having orgasmed on top of you. I mean, maybe not though. Most women can't from penetration, but if she's on top, she can rub her clit like against your stomach or with her hand or whatever. It's easier to have a clitoral stimulation and have an orgasm for most women. So just pay attention to her speed. And when she does come and orgasm, like, what is the speed like? If she does come from penetration as well, like, what is her speed? So then you can use that speed whenever you're trying to focus on pleasuring her, right? I'm not saying everything has to revolve around the speed that she likes, and I think the depth should revolve around what she can handle for sure, because otherwise she's going to be hurt. So she should definitely have a say in that, and you guys should talk about it. But, when it comes to speed and it's about her and her pleasure at that moment, just keep in check. All right, well, I know that when she's on top, this is about how fast she goes, so I'll go about here. And then when I'm in the moment, I'm going to ask her, like, hey, you want me to go faster? Or, does that feel good? And there's sexy ways to just check in, like, babe, does that feel good? How does that feel? Like, So it's just having that communication back and forth and openly. And this is how you step into like the next phase of your sex life with your partner. When they trust you and they know that you care about first their orgasm, that should be number one, is like, I feel really good having an orgasm with my partner. Like, I have consistent orgasms. Then she's more likely to want to open up to different sexual ideas, right? And become more sexually vulnerable with you and want sex more consistently. And there's studies that prove that, there are a few studies, because I read this in a few books. It's probably like the leading study that proved that 95% of men orgasm whenever they have sex, and about 60% of women orgasm when they have sex. So there's definitely a difference here, and you want to make sure that you're pleasuring your partner, right? Like, put your ego aside. Don't worry if you haven't been. It's okay. If she's not communicating, how are you supposed to know? And if you're not communicating, how are you supposed to know? So let's move forward with just communication. You know, are you having orgasms when we have sex? Are you enjoying our sex? Because most likely she's not, if she's not having orgasms most of the time. It's okay to not have them every time, but if the majority of the time she's not feeling pleasured, whether that's through a sensual whole body experience or an orgasm, and most of the sex is just pounding penetration and no orgasm, like, she's most likely miserable with her sex life, if that's the case. So check in. If you care about your partner, check in. Make sure that she's enjoying it, because most likely, like, she will cut sex off after a certain point and just be one of those women who never wants to give it to you. And this is when guys are like, what the fuck? She never wants sex. But you have to understand, like, if she's not feeling pleasure out of the experience, why would she want it? You know? Some women do it just because they're young and, like, they're single. But once they have kids, they have a reason to stop doing it. If they have a better reason. You know what I mean? And then they get older and it's kind of just like, no, fuck that. Like, I don't need that. And this is, like, one of the reasons why women stop having sex with their men. But yeah, you don't want that to happen, right? So keep the communication open. And if it's not there, introduce the communication, because you could always start now. And understand that, you know, 3 major points covered today. Use lube and use lube / go down on her and prep her always before entering. Point 2, be cautious of how hard you're pounding. Let her determine the limit and then you take it from there, just to have in mind for the future. And when it comes to depth, also get to know her limit. And last point is that porn stars hardly ever come on camera. So all those women you see on camera most likely are not actually enjoying themselves. They go home after the long shaft, I should say. And they go to their actual partners where he goes down on them, where the men go down on the women and then they actually get off that way. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that fucked up? That's why you should also check out, and I had a few clients check out this blog, because it's just a much better porn option to use. It's called Bellesa, I think. Bellesa. And I'll link it in the show notes, but it's a porn site that is more around, it's less aggressive and it's more around female pleasure. It's still super hot. Like, it's not like just all slow, sensual stuff, but there's a lot of sensuality, which is what turns women on and gives women pleasure. Full body experiences, which more of you men need to experience, because it puts you more in the present moment. It relaxes you. It actually gives you a whole full body sex experience and doesn't make everything about your cock. So it's just, I think it's a much better, if you're watching porn right now and you're on Pornhub, I would switch over and give yourself some time on Bellesa. I hope I'm saying it right. But if I'm not, it will be in the show notes anyway. And yeah, check it out and let me know what you think. But hope this helped. And always communicate during sex or after sex or before sex. Communication is key to a better sex life. All right, guys, have an amazing morning, evening, or night wherever you are in the world, and I'll talk to you soon. I hope this episode helped you. If it did, I would love for you to leave me an iTunes review. It would mean the world to me. You can also screenshot your favorite episodes and tag me on Instagram @StephGanowski. And before I go, remember, your sex life is as good as you make it out to be. Until next time.